I never believed my mom when she warned me about the delivery guy who would get to my bedroom in my absence. I always thought she was being typical and overprotective of me. But that changed one day when I got home early and discovered something that would leave me shocked. It all began when I got married to my beautiful wife, Annie. We had been together for 3 years before we tied the knot, and I couldn't be happier. Annie was everything I wanted in a partner. Beautiful, intelligent and kind-hearted. She had a smile that could light up a room and a personality that could make anyone feel comfortable in her presence. We had moved into our new home a year ago, and life had been blissful ever since. However, that all changed when my mom came to visit us. She'd been staying with us for a week when she noticed something strange. That was a delivery guy who kept coming to our apartment almost every day, and he always seemed to be eyeing me suspiciously. My mom warned me that the guy might be up to no good and that I should be careful. I dismissed her concerns, thinking that she was being paranoid. I told her that the guy was just doing his job and that there was nothing to worry about. However, my mom was persistent. She kept telling me to keep an eye on the guy and to be careful when he came to our apartment. I thought that she was being too cautious and that there was no reason to worry after all. Annie and I were happy and had nothing to hide. But then one day I came home early from work and saw something that would change everything. I first met Annie at a mutual friend's party. And from that moment I saw her, I was smitten. It was a hot summer night and I was feeling restless, looking for a way to escape the heat. I arrived at the party hoping to meet new people but found myself feeling out of place. That's when I saw Annie for the first time. She was wearing a simple white sundress and had her long brown hair tied back in a ponytail. She had a smile that lit up the entire room. We started talking and I felt an instant connection with her. We exchanged numbers and I felt like I was on cloud 9 as I drove home. Our first date was at a cozy little Italian restaurant downtown. We talked for hours over plates of spaghetti and meatballs. We both loved movies and we ended up going to see one after dinner. As we walked out of the theater, I knew that I had found someone special. We started dating exclusively and our relationship grew stronger with each passing day. I loved spending time with Annie, whether we were exploring the city or just cuddling up on the couch watching a movie. We had our ups and downs like any other couple, but we always worked through our problems together. After 2 years of dating, I knew that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Annie. I decided to propose to her at a special spot near the river where we used to go on picnics. I had arranged for a romantic setup with candles, rose petals and her favorite food. She said yes. And I felt like the luckiest man alive. Our wedding day was a dream come true. It was a beautiful ceremony with our family and friend gatherings around us. I remember seeing Annie walking down the aisle looking radiant in her white gown. I felt like I was the luckiest man in the world. Our married life was started great. We settled into our new apartment and I continued to work at my job as a marketing executive. Annie was working as a freelance graphic designer and we were both happy in our respective careers. But our happiness was short-lived. One day, my mom called me and warned me about a delivery guy who had been coming to our apartment complex. She had heard from neighbors that he'd been seen entering some of the apartments when the tenants were not at home. She warned me to be careful and to keep an eye out for anything suspicious. I brushed off her concerns, thinking that she was just being typical of a protective self. I told her that I was a grown man and could take care of myself and my wife. I never imagined that her warning would come true. As days went by, I continued to go to work and Annie was working from home. One day, I got a call from my boss asking me to come to his office for an urgent meeting. I left home in a hurry, forget to lock the door. It was around 3 p.m. when I received a message from Annie saying that she was going to take a nap. I replied to her message saying that I would be back soon. I had a sense of urgency and I wanted to finish the meeting as soon as possible so that I could go back home to Annie. It took me about an hour to get back home. And when I entered the apartment complex, as I entered the apartment, the silence was deafening. Annie's car was not in the driveway and I couldn't help but feel a bit lonely. I headed inside and went straight to our bedroom. As I walked down the hallway, I heard a strange noise coming from our room. It sounded like someone was ripping through our belongings. My heart started racing as I approached the door, not knowing what Dick expected. I hesitated for a moment, then pushed the door open. What I saw left me frozen with shock. There was a man in our bedroom going through our drawers and cabinets. He had his back on me and did not notice me standing there. I was about to scream for help, but I then recognized him. It was the same delivery guy that my mom had warned me about. I stood there not knowing what to do. Should I confront him? Should I call the police? Should I just sneak out of the room and pretend like I never saw anything? I decided to remain silent and observe his actions. The intruder seemed to be in a hurry, searching through our belongings for something valuable. He was completely unaware of my presence, which gave me a chance to plan my next move carefully. My mind was racing with questions. How did he manage to break into our apartment? Why was he stealing from us? I was scared and angry. At the same time, I knew I had to act fast because he noticed me. So I carefully retreated from the room and went to the living room as I made my way out of the room. My heart was pounding in my chest and I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my veins. I took a deep breath and tried to think clearly. Should I call the police or confront the intruder myself? I decided to call the police, knowing that it was the safest option. I quickly grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I explained the situation to the operator and provided them with my address. They assured me that the police were on their way and advised me to stay put. I waited anxiously in the living room, hoping that the police would arrive before the intruder finished stealing our belongings. I could hear the sound of footsteps in the hallway and my heart dropped as I realized that the intruder heard me and was coming my way. I hid behind the couch, trying to remain as quiet as possible. The intruder looked around the living room for a moment before making his way towards the front door. I could hear the sounds of sirens in the distance and I knew that the police were on their way. Just then the delivery guy turned around and saw me. His eyes widened with shock and he started stammering, trying to explain himself. He said that he had come to deliver a package and that he had accidentally stumbled into our bedroom, but I knew he was lying. He had no package with him and he had no reason to be in our bedroom. I backed away slowly, not taking my eyes off him. I told him to leave and he compiled, running out of the room as fast as he could. I was left standing there trying to process what had just happened as I called the police and they reported the incident. They came over and searched the apartment but they did not find anything. The delivery guy had vanished, leaving no trace behind. I couldn't sleep that night thinking about what could have happened if I had not come home early. But if Annie had been home alone when the delivery guy came, but if he had heard her, or worse, they thought, the sent shivers down my spine. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I knew I had to find out more about this delivery guy and what his intentions were. I started by going through our security footage, hoping to find some clues. As I watched the footage, my heart sank. The delivery guy had been coming to our apartment for weeks. Even before my mom had arrived, he would usually arrive when I was at work and Annie was home alone. He always would come up to our bedroom and stay there for a few minutes before leaving. I couldn't believe it. This man had been spying on us for weeks and I had no idea. I felt violated, angry and scared at all. Once I knew I had to do something to stop him before he did something even worse. I started by contacting the delivery company and reported the incident. They promised to investigate and get back to me. But I knew that wasn't enough. I needed to find this guy and make sure he never came near us again. I spent the next few days following every lead I could find. I talked to our neighbors, went through our phone records, and even contacted a private investigator. Finally, I got a break. One of our neighbor had seen the delivery guy's car parked outside on a nearby street. I rushed over there hoping to catch him in the act. As I approached his car, I saw him getting out of the nearby apartment with a package in his hand. I confronted him, demanding to know what he was doing there. At first, he denied everything, but then he broke down and confessed. He said that he had been hired by someone to spy on us and that he had been paid a load of money to do. So I was shocked who would want to spy on us and why I demanded to know the name of the person who had hired him. But he refused to tell me. He said that he was scared for his life and that he would not reveal anything. I knew I had to go to the police with this information. I had a feeling that whoever had hired the delivery guy was still out there watching us. I couldn't let my guard down. The police took the delivery guy into custody and promised to investigate further. But even after weeks of investigation, they could not find any evidence of who had hired him. It was like the peasant had vanished into the air. I tried to go back to my normal life, but I couldn't shake off the feeling of being washed. Every time I heard a noise or saw something outside, I would get paranoid. I felt like I was being washed all the time. Months went by and nothing happened. The delivery guy was in the jail and I had increased security measures around our apartment. I thought we were safe, but I was wrong. One night, I woke up to the sound of someone in our backyard. I got out of the bed and went to the window hoping to catch the glimpse of whoever was out there. But all I saw was a shadow moving in the darkness. I grabbed my phone and called the police, telling them that someone was trying to break into our apartment. I heard the sound of the intruder trying to force open the back door and my heart started racing. I knew I had to protect my wife and myself. I grabbed a baseball bat from my closet and waited for the intruder to come in. I was scared, but I was also angry. How dare someone tries to harm us like this? Finally, the door opened and a figure stepped inside. I swung the bat with all my might, hitting the intruder on the head. He fell on the ground unconscious as I looked at the intruder's face. I couldn't believe what I saw. It was the same man who had delivered packages to our apartment. The same man who had been spying on us. How had he escaped from jail and why? He come back? I didn't have time to think about those questions. I had to call the police and make sure that they caught him again. I dialed 911 and explained the situation. But when the police arrived, they told me that the intruder was dead. I hit him too hard. I was devastated. I had never intended to kill anyone, but I had acted out of fear in self-defense. Police took my statement and I was arrested for the manslaughter. My life was turned upside down and I had to go through a long legal battle to prove my innocence. It was during that trial that I finally found out who had hired the delivery guy to spy on us. It was my mom. She had always been jealous of our relationship. She had hired the delivery guy to spy on us and create problems in our marriage. I was shocked and heartbroken. How could someone who had pretended to love me from childhood do something so cruel and malicious? My wife was devastated too, and our relationship suffered a lot of strain because of it. It took a long time for us to heal from the trauma of those events. We moved to a new apartment far away from our mom and anyone else who might want to harm us. We got counseling and support from our friends and family, and slowly we started to rebuild our lives. But even now, years later, I still have nightmares about that night. I still wake up in the middle of the night convinced that someone is watching. Yes, I still feel a sense of dread and unease whenever a stranger comes to our door. I learned a valuable lesson from that experience. Though I learned to trust my instincts and to be more aware of my surroundings, I learned to take security seriously and to protect the ones that I love at all cost. And even though I'll never forget the terror of those days, I know that I am a stronger advisor because of them. I know that I can face anything as long as I have my wife by my side. And that's the most important thing of all. And most importantly, I learned that love and trust to own nothing to be taken for granted. And I'm grateful for every day for my wife. He stood by my side throughout the whole ordeal for our friends and family who supported us when we needed it most. The battle was long and difficult, but eventually I was acquitted of all charges. It was a huge relief, but it didn't erase the pain and trauma of what had happened. My mom was never held accountable for her actions, but we cut ties with her completely and moved on with our lives. Nowadays, we live in a peaceful and safe neighborhood and we take every precaution to make sure that our home is secure. We have a good relationship with our neighbors and we watch out for each other. I still work as a software engineer, but I'm more cautious now. I take breaks from work to spend time with my wife and enjoy life's simple pleasures. We go on hikes, take weekend trips and enjoy good food and wine. Life is not perfect. But I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned and the people in my life who make it worth living, and whenever I feel scared or anxious, I remind myself that I am stronger than my fears and that I have the idea of love and support of those who met the most. I learned to take security measures seriously and to always be prepared for the worst-case scenario. Now, whenever I hear about someone experiencing something similar, my heart goes out to them. I know how traumatic it can be to feel like you are being watched, followed or targeted. But I also know that there is hope, and without the right support and resources, it's possible to overcome even the worst of situations. I hope that by sharing my story, I can help others who may be going through something similar. No one should have to live in fear of a victim of violence or harassment. There is help out there and there's always a way to get through it. As for my mom, I've forgiven her, but I'll never forget what she did. Our relationship will never be the same. But I have learned to let go of the anger and resentment that I once felt toward her. Life is too short to hold on to grudges. And I have found peace in letting go and moving on in the end. I am grateful for the lessons I learned and the strength I gained from that experience. It wasn't easy, but it made me a stronger and more resilient person. And for that I am thankful.